the meeting of the Village Council of the Village of Oxford. This is not a regularly scheduled meeting. It's Tuesday, July 22nd, 2014. It's just about exactly 6 p.m. Could we have the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence for our men and women in uniform, both in the village and in the rest of the world? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Would the clerk call the roll?
President Bailey.
I'm here.
Councilmember Basardi. Here. Councilmember Cloutier.
Here.
Councilmember Helmut.
Here.
Councilmember Nichols.
Here. We have a quorum. Does anybody have anything to bring forward regarding the agenda?
I would like to, if I may, Mr. Chairman, move item 9A, which is appointment of the DDA Executive Director, up to 4A, so that after the interview, we can make a decision. That'll allow our audience then to leave earlier rather than sticking to the end. Get out of here early.
We have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
Okay.
Support. I'm just not sure what we're doing. I'm so confused.
Well, I guess that was, I guess Nichols made that in the form of a motion, did you?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, and then
Susan supported that.
And then Sue supported. Yeah. Any discussion on the motion, Chairman?
Could we add to that motion to set aside the minutes, approval of the minutes of July 8th?
That is a good point, because the minutes of July 8th are available in a draft form which has not yet been proofread.
Also make a motion.
I'll make a, or I'll amend my support.
Yeah, and your motion included not only that adjustment, but also to approve the amended minutes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay. Any further comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have an agenda, an amended agenda. Next is a presentation, which is an interview of a candidate for DDA director who has already been interviewed by the DDA. Yes, Bill. Go ahead. And identify yourself for the people on video.
Got my signature already.
Yes.
Bill Dunn, Township Supervisor and Chairman of the DDA.
Yes.
Just for your information, we did have some candidates that applied for that position. I can't believe how good the candidates were. Last night we got them down to the last 3. Any one of those candidates could have done this job, but we had to make the tough decision last night, and we made it down to the last 3. They were interviewed, and before you is the candidate that the DDA chose. I would hope you would follow through with our recommendation. She is a very good candidate, and one thing that did impress me was at at your last meeting, she went out of her way to come to the meeting to introduce herself. So I'm just going to introduce Virginia.
Thank you. And now you can formally introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Jenny Shomish, or Virginia. I guess I was selected for the GDA Executive Director position. This summer I'm finishing my master's degree in Historic Preservation at Eastern Michigan University. And now here I am. I have just probably another month of work to do on my project and I'll be complete. So, otherwise I've been working also at Eastern. I'm a graduate assistant there, doing basically various office tasks for their program, but also getting really involved with different preservation professionals in our community and a lot of our alums wherever they are. And I'm also currently a intern at the City of Monroe in their planning and historic preservation department. So I've been doing a lot of different tasks with them. And there's a whole list of other things, but I don't want to continue to go on and on for you guys unless you're curious.
Okay, I have a question. If you start working as director of Village of Oxford DDA, will you have to set aside some of those other activities? And have you figured out which ones that will be higher and which ones will be lower priority for you?
Yeah, both of them are basically a summer thing. Especially at Eastern, it's a student position, so once I'm done, I'm done. So I'll be out of there by the end of August, definitely. And same thing with Monroe. It's a summer internship, so, and they're very well that I've been interviewing and are very encouraging about finding a position in a preservation field. So the people in Monroe have no problems with me taking my time, leaving when I need to.
Thank you. Elgin?
Just two quick questions. Have you worked with budgets before?
Little bits. We've taken a course in grant writing through the program in preservation. So I have done a budget for a grant as well as completing that grant. I've done a few different accounting courses throughout high school and a little bit in college, as well as just general, it's kind of embedded in my life. Both my mom and my sister are in the business administration field, so it's kind of something that I've really been embedded with my entire life. And my dad's also a small business owner, so he's keeping track of his own books and that kind of thing. Just kind of ingrained in me.
Well, I'm sure the Honorable Bill Dunn and along with the board have talked to you about, what situations we've had in the past.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, very good. One more question. Are you sure you want to do this? Okay.
That was your second question?
That was it.
Okay. I don't have any questions because I'm assuming the TDA did a heck of a job interviewing their candidates and made a good decision.
There was 3 people on that board, on the committee. It was myself, Pete Schultz, and Dorothy Johnson, and we did an interview along with the manager, all the candidates.
I would just say here that I have read your resume and credentials look good. And I do know that we have certain things in place now that should help you as we go along.
Great.
Go ahead.
I just have a comment. When it comes to municipal accounting, I don't know if you're aware of this, but aside from being a council member, I'm also the director of the public library.
Okay.
With a very strong track record, successful track record in municipal accounting. So if I can be of any assistance during that process, please do not hesitate to call upon me. I'd be more than happy to sit down with you and work with you on understanding how those types of budgets work. I'm sure you have an understanding already, but just kind of fill you in on what you should be aware of.
Sure,
because there's a lot of complexities in this community that you don't have the history with. So I'd be more than happy to do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Dunn?
I'd like to thank Ryan for volunteering to do that. I think it's very important. And one thing I would be happy to help you with is work and welcome her to politics. She didn't know politics before, she's going to know it now.
This is true.
Not only she got U5 to worry about, she's got the 9 members on the DDA, and that's what it is, it's politics, so.
Yes, I have a comment about that. Politics in a village is supposed to be nonpartisan, but nonpartisan does not mean non-intense.
I'm aware. I'm very aware.
Yes.
One additional thing I'd like to
you're
add to
next.
Brian is the fact that he is knowledgeable about grant writing too, so.
Great. Fantastic.
Sue?
Jenny, can you tell us, who's here, a little bit about any experience with Main Street?
I haven't had very much direct experience with the Main Street, but Main Streets are really what got me interested in the field of historic preservation to begin with. I know that a lot of people look at historic preservation and they think that we're freezing a building in time, when in a lot of ways it's the exact opposite, where if you can find a way to reuse a historic building and bringing it back to bringing it back to vitality for a community, I guess, is really the way that I see preservation working in communities. That being said, we did a class through my graduate studies that was economic development class. I talked about it last night. That was run as a simulation. And so through that, we kind of got to see a lot of different things that Main Street communities are able to do in their own communities, as well as other classes that we've discussed, the different aspects of a Main Street approach to different DDA responsibilities in different communities.
Have you had any experience in economic development? Do any of your classes would go in that direction?
Yeah, a little bit. The one class that was ran as a simulation was really working to bring back a 18th century downtown, or excuse me, 19th century downtown. I had to think about it, I was like, that's too early. So yeah, we were doing just a couple different activities in that class. I mean, as a simulation, we can't do everything, and in a lot of ways it was simplified, but the basic ideas I think are still there, and ways that you can make a downtown better, ways you can attract businesses and retain businesses and help them to grow, so.
Great.
Council? Nothing further? Okay. Is there any input or questions from the audience? Yeah? Want to identify yourself? Go ahead and go to the podium. That way people. That way people can hear you on the TV as well as here.
I'm interested in what area you are from, and if you're familiar at all with Oxford and what has actually been going on with Oxford at all.
Originally, I'm from a small town north of Lansing, and then for the past 6 years, I've been in the Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti area. That being said, though, I do have a familiarity with Clarkston in that area. I've been going back and forth there for about 5 years, just for traveling and visiting family and that kind of thing. I do need to get acquainted to Oxford, definitely. I know that's one of my top priorities, is to really get to know the community and get to know what's happening here. And that's part of the reason why I came to the meeting the last time, was just to see what's going on in the community and getting to know the people that live here, that work here a little bit better.
And then where will you be commuting from?
To be determined, wherever I find an apartment. Right now, I do have an apartment in Ypsilanti, but my lease is up next month, so I will be moving shortly.
Could you identify yourself for the people on video?
Sure. My name is Jennifer Graves. I'm a local business owner here in Oxford. I'm also a chamber board member and very interested in who's going to fill this position, and would like to help make some choices and who that may be. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything more from the audience? Anything more from council? Is there a motion from council?
I'll make a motion to approve the appointment of Virginia Shomish as Executive Director of the DDA at the hourly rate of $19.25. Do we need to say that that's $25,000, works out to be $25,000?
Not to exceed.
Oh, not to exceed, oh, if I'd have read a little bit farther, not to exceed $25,000, as recommended and approved by the DDA Board.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Susan and a support by Brian. Discussion of the motion. Let's do a roll call vote.
Councilmember Helmuth?
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols?
Yes.
Councilmember Cloutier?
Yes.
Councilmember Bailey?
Yes.
Councilmember Basardi?
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Mr. Dunn.
That motion had when she was to start.
It did not.
Not sure. They just appoint set salary, the DDA and everything else.
So we have to go back to the DDA to give her a start time?
We took care of that last night.
Oh, is that right?
So she starts immediately?
Pardon?
She starts immediately?
As soon as
So, well, I think that
When would you like it?
contract that,
Okay.
a contract,
I just want to make sure that we're doing, now, would I invite her to come here tomorrow to take the physical at the, or when do we, I just want a
I
timetable.
already talked with her.
Oh, did you?
regarding that.
Well, nobody's talked to me, so.
Brian?
Sorry, I didn't get with your...
Well, it's all right, it's all right. I was curious.
I would venture to say that probably, I mean, with your experience in that field, that it would be handled administratively. We wouldn't make that decision.
Okay.
And you'll work through, obviously, you have to sit down with the candidate and determine when she can make that transition. Because she may have obligations that she has that we're unaware of.
Okay, just want to make sure that,
It'll be a contract, contractual arrangement, it's not an employee, it's a contract.
Yeah, you need to communicate with Joe on this.
yeah, we'll get together and then
Okay,
One more thing.
go ahead.
I'd like to thank the DDA board, their diligence in presenting this candidate, who's now our new DDA director.
And I'd like to thank the committee, under the DDA, for recognizing her value.
I have to say it was one of the toughest choices I had to make, or the board had to make. There's nobody ready to jump up there and eliminate 200 people. Even to eliminate anybody from the 5 is a very difficult choice.
Thank you. Next item is item 5, which is public hearings. We do not have any, is that correct? Joe? Okay. Let's go to 6, which is a call to the public for any comments or questions on any items not on the agenda. Anybody? Okay. 7 is the consent agenda. 7A is the items to be normally received and filed. We have set aside 7A1. 7A2 is correspondence. 3 is letters, reports, and minutes. 4 is board and committee updates. Joe, do you have anything to present specifically? The clerk, yes.
Susan McCullough from the Oxford Township has announced that the people that were able to put in their petitions today were Sue Basardi, Brian Cloutier, Maureen Helmuth, and Rose Bama. They made the deadline of 4 o'clock. So we have 4 candidates for the 5 seats for the November 4th election.
Yes, thank you. I would comment that that comparison of 4 to 5 suggests that maybe somebody might organize a write-in campaign. Mr. Dunn?
I was just asking how that was going to, how we're going to fill the field.
Well, if there are write-in candidates, would that function
We
normally?
could have a write-in candidate if someone so chooses, or we would have to appoint.
The write-in
Go ahead.
The write-in candidate would have to declare. They just can't, at the ballot box, write in names.
I would hope not.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah. And I believe the requirements for qualifications of the write-in person are the same, with the only exception being that they would not be required to circulate a petition.
Right.
So you have to be, what, 21 years of age?
21.
And a resident of the village of Oxford for 6 months as of the election day in November.
Going back.
And you have to be a registered voter. And sometimes people fail to qualify because they're a registered voter, but not in this precinct. So make sure you're a registered voter within the village of Oxford, and the people in, down in Pontiac understand that, because sometimes you might think you're registered in one place and actually you're not registered. You're registered somewhere else.
And we can always look that up for anyone.
Yes. Okay. Of course. Thank you. So what else do we have to transact regarding receive and file items? Nothing? Comments from the council on receive and file items?
I'll make a motion to receive and file.
Support.
Okay, that was Susan and Elgin. Discussion on the motion. All in favor to receive and file? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Then Item 7B on the consent agenda is approval items which need to be dealt with formally. The bills are presented in the amount total of $357,867.66. Are there other items, Joe or Susan, that we should be concerned with?
Have none.
Okay. Council? Comments on the bills? Questions on the bills?
No questions? I'll make a motion to approve the bills. Is that the only thing that's there? Yep, in the amount of $357,867.66.
Support.
Okay, that was Susan and Maureen. Questions or comments on the motion? Questions or comments from the audience on the motion? Let's have a roll call.
Councilmember Basardi.
Yes.
Councilmember Helmut.
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols.
Yes.
Councilmember Cloutier.
Yes.
Councilmember Bailey.
Yes. Bills may be paid. Item 8 is unfinished or old business, and 8A is concerning the Ridge Lawn Cemetery Access Road. Does anyone have anything on this item? Joe?
Give an update that's presented your agenda this evening. Our research to try to locate documents that were referenced in previous meetings by Mrs. Atchison have not been found or produced, and that's what this report's presenting to you on. It's also advising that this was last visited by the Planning Commission in June 2011 with the provision that at some point then they could bring it back for a site plan approval. At that time, the applicant was not in a position to do that, and this evening, for your considerations, if you want to consider referring this back to the Planning Commission, should the applicant so be in a position to do that, with certain conditions and provisions that are suggested here relative to the limited use of the driveway, roadway, to have a gated system that would be for services, funeral services and deliveries only, that the cost of the roadway would be paid for by the applicant, and along with the maintenance of the roadway. To determine the existing materials that are suitable and on the road surface that's proposed, that might be more of a Planning Commission item, but just let you know that would be an issue to be addressed, and that the access way would be only for use for cemetery operations. And I did put in there that this approval, the throw back to planning would be that no new developments will be proposed in this, since it's zone R1. But just for consideration, which I did run by the village attorney, and that these are very appropriate things for you to consider should you choose to.
Thank you. Susan?
Joe, I don't know whether it's appropriate at this time or if it goes back to the Planning Commission, but one thing I'd like to make note or have it be part of the condition is that if they're using that for funeral exits, that they need to have someone actually at Dayton and Willow and Dayton and Pleasant Street directing traffic, because if there's 50 cars in a procession, to just let them go out and drive through the neighborhood, I don't think is a good thing. So they need to be able to have someone out there to direct the people.
At Dayton and Pleasant.
I think at Dayton and Willow, too.
Right.
The two places, so that when they come out of the drive, they're directed toward Pleasant. When they come to Pleasant, they're directed straight down or wherever. But
Maureen has first.
I just want to say that, first of all, my neighbors were all under the impression that it was going to be at the August meeting, which is probably why almost none of them are here.
Oh.
Second, we did spend a lot of time in the basement. We went through the minutes from 1975 to 1990, which was Brian Aerosmith's entire time here. We found where Dayton Street was vacated and apparently not deeded properly. Cherry Street was never owned by the village. Cherry Street was owned by Ray Industries, who sold it to the Staleys, and it was never the village's to give them access from. There was no mention of Willow Street. We even called the old building official and zoning administrator, Larry Erickson. Excuse me. We went through his files and found nothing. You guys weren't able to find anything, Chris?
Mom, we haven't gotten through all of our books yet.
Oh, we went through all ours.
All ours, she doesn't throw anything out.
Yeah.
You want me up there to answer questions?
If you wish, you may do so.
I'll stand up there.
Yeah.
But-
You got something to say?
You know, none of the neighbors knew this was going to be on tonight, and I do want that to be taken into account.
Yes.
Chris Atchison from Ridgelawn Cemetery. I didn't know it was either.
I know.
You had a question about directing traffic?
Not a question, really, just a statement, that I think that somebody needs to be out in the road directing traffic as funerals leave.
We do that now at every funeral with the help of the police department. Coming out onto Burdick Street.
Yes, Elgin?
I believe the whole subject of this property, if it should be sold, given, or whatever you're thinking about doing with it, there's no precedent for that. And I've been looking for information in the records, as was indicated, by your mom, by the way, is a nice person. And I didn't think that there would be anything that would be forthcoming. With that, it's not our property necessarily to give away. It's the resident's property.
No, it's
The way it is.
right. You're right.
It is.
Sorry.
Okay. So I don't think that there's a premise for it. I don't believe that it should be given or sold to anyone at this point. My opinion.
Yes, Brian?
I was never under the impression that we were going to give it away or sell it.
Right.
I was under the impression that we were going to allow access through it, perhaps maintained by and reinforced by the property owner that's adjacent to that obviously needs it as a, an access road to the cemetery. But I never was under the impression that we were even going to entertain the idea of giving away our
But there's other questions too concerning traffic through that area, which I heard some residents, and I agree with Maureen. The people aren't here tonight, and he found out by accident, I guess, that it was going to be tonight. I'd like to see this thing tabled until residents can come in and have their say.
Is that a motion to table?
It is
Set aside.
To set aside?
set aside. I make a motion that we set this issue aside until, what is it, the August, have time for it to?
The 12th.
Okay, August 12th.
Is there a second?
I'll support that.
Okay. Sue, you had your hand up before the motion was made, so I would give
Well,
you...
I just was going to echo what Brian said. I was never under the impression that we were going to give it away or sell it, that we were just going to let them have access across it. So it's still going to be village
Whether the
property.
village would have liability.
The way it originally started was we just wanted 8 feet down the center of each side, that's 16 feet per driveway. If the residents on the east side wanted to do something, which they're doing, they're parking their stuff and everything, that was all right. The residents on the west side could do what they wanted. He could still have his entrance to his backyard. Nothing has changed except for putting the easement all the way. It already connects our property, just making it versatile for people to use as an exit. It was not our intentions to buy it. It's not our intentions to keep people from using it. That's totally up to the village, because it's village property. It's not residents' property, it's village property.
Yeah.
Same thing.
I have a procedural item. Could Joe perhaps tell us what the process was in putting this item on the agenda for today? How did that happen?
Requested by Councilmember Otero to go ahead and put it on the agenda.
Okay.
Which I do whenever a council member asks something and I put it on.
Okay. Sue?
Joe, I don't know, somebody, now I've slipped my mind, who said something about the liability of allowing people to drive on it, but where's our liability if people are using it right now and parking vehicles and kids are playing on it? Where is our liability now? Why are we allowing that?
Well, we have liability regardless.
I'd like to point out we have a motion on
open
the
and
floor.
accessible.
We have a motion on the floor, and the motion on the floor refers to set aside. I allowed Sue to speak because she had her hand up before the motion was even made. But we should be focusing on the issue of set aside or deal with it now. Further comment either from the council or from the audience on whether we set aside or work on it now?
You have a second on this, I think.
We have a motion and a second to set aside. No further comments? Comments on the motion to set aside? None. Okay. All in favor of setting aside, say aye. Aye. All opposed? That sounded unanimous to me, although it was a voice vote, but I heard no nays. So that will be dealt with, what, on the 8th, did you say? The 12th. The 12th, I'm sorry. Okay.
If I may, I got one thing to say.
Go ahead.
Since it's on camera, I'd like to thank all the people that were on the Pollyanny Trail that were inconvenienced by us driving down it. It was very awkward, and I know they were put out, quite a few people were put out, but I really appreciate their patience.
Did the Pollyann users understand the reason why you had to do that?
They had no idea what we were doing.
They had no idea, okay.
They had
Understand.
no idea what was going on.
Yeah.
But I do want to get it out there so that the ones that might see this
Yes,
know that I understand why they were upset.
yes. Thank you.
I apologize.
So we are presently at 8B, which says raise, increase, and reclassification request. Joe, do you have something on that?
I do, council. In the adopted budget, we did have proposed in the administrative area, one of our administrative assistants who is more of an accounting assistant, has been here 2 years, and the last meeting, the council granted a 1% across the board increase. Village clerk Susan Nazar said she would request that her 1% be granted to this person, which is 22 cents. I too would support my 1% going to that, and ask also that consideration be given to the request to reclassify this person at the rate that was included in the budget of $14.50. Clerk Pastor can speak to the skill and work level and caliber. I think that's probably why she's got that chart. I'm not sure. You want to speak to that?
We almost lost
I have a question regarding the format of this suggestion. The way you've said it sounds misleadingly simple. You say, well, I'd like my 1% to go to, but I'd like to see the dollar numbers. And that's in there?
Yeah,
Okay,
the
good.
proposal last meeting had this the same request for this person. However, at this time, I didn't bring it up further because you just got the 1% through. In
Yeah.
light of the clerk saying she'd like to
It is.
have her pay
It's there?
increase transferred over.
Good.
And I concur with her, and therefore we're re-requesting it. The memo from last week, last meeting has that same comment about there's pay increase for administrative councils from $1.86 to $14.50. We're doing much more difficult accounting work for the past 2 years, which was also included in the budget. Now, so just, this isn't something new. It was their last meeting, and in light of the fact that we're willing to give up our salary for this person, I ask you to consider it. That's all. We're just asking you to consider it, that's all.
Yes, and the suggestion will be expense neutral?
It's budgeted.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, thank Thank you. That would be, yes, Mo.
My phone's about to die, so I don't want to use the calculator. 57 cents is what percentage to Sherry?
I'm sorry.
57 cents is what percentage increase for Sherry?
Yes.
That was the kind of thing I was getting at. I wanted to see
I
numbers.
guess I can give you the number.
It's more of a step increase, like,
Okay, we don't have step increases.
4.5%.
And that's my problem, is to not have step increases set up in the personnel policy and to give one person a step increase of 4.5% and no other employees considered for one. I have a real problem with that. I think Sherry does a great job. I think she works her butt off, but I have a problem not considering the entire staff.
I am foregoing my raise and Joe is foregoing her raise to give to that, so it's neutral.
I understand that. That doesn't make it like, it'd be different if you wanted to take your 1% and his 1% and split it amongst all the non-unions. But to want us to consider something you're calling a step increase, we don't have classes. We don't have reclass, so you're using words that aren't in the personnel policy. And I have a real problem with that.
Well, we did have different classes because Rose had an accounting assistant classification and everybody else had the admin. Now, Rose is no longer doing that work, but Sherry is. And Sherry has streamlined the office and many of the procedures that we do.
Oh, I think she does a great job, but I think some other staff does a great job too. And I think for us to consider that and not consider everybody, I'm not comfortable with. I think Sherry does a great job though, and I will call her tomorrow and tell her that.
I have a question for the administration. Administratively, did you informally consider the other workers during that process?
We did.
The one worker has only been with us 2 months.
Okay.
The other one's been here longer. However, she didn't bring with her the many years of service that Sherry retired as a clerk, deputy clerk.
Deputy clerk treasurer.
For years, accounting-wise, and reconciliations and balancing. These are things that take time to learn and progress and develop. And that's what this is based on. We're trying to pay based on the work performance of these people. And yes, we're looking to train and move everybody up forward to that level, but this person far stands out, and we're just, as I said, we do evaluate the people and determine if there's a significant consideration. That's why it's been presented to you here for this evening.
Elgin?
Yeah, Joe, is Sherry under contract?
No. Just like everyone else, that will.
She's not at will, okay.
They're all at will.
Yeah, they're all, yeah.
Okay, that makes a little bit different situation here.
Go ahead.
I don't see a problem with it. I think that with the amount of knowledge that Sherry brought with her and the experience, I have no problem doing this. And if you guys are willing to give up your percentage, then I don't see what the problem is.
Who was first?
I mean, I think that we pay,
Okay.
sorry.
No, you're still on the floor.
Yeah, that's all
You're
right.
still on the floor. Okay, go ahead, Brian.
I just want to say that if this is what, traditionally, we probably wouldn't do something like this, but given the circumstances of our financial budget and given the ability to be able to hire and retain someone of this level, which is a rarity in a community like this that honestly is struggling in some areas, and to have that background, if this is something that you're willing to do to make that happen, I respect that, and I don't really see an issue with it.
Elgin?
Although I can see Maureen's take on this thing, I agree with Brian. Just from a business perspective, if you get somebody that has this wealth of knowledge and experience, and plus you have people that are so committed to this employee that they're willing to give up their wage, I have a strong tendency to go in that direction and prove it.
Thank you. Maureen?
And I just thought, both Don Brantley and Mike Niemanowski, as well as Joe, and I think Sue, although I'm confused on my dates here, they've all given up wages. And to only give them 1% and give another employee, really what boils down to 5.5%, because we already gave her 1%. I just think that's asking the current employees to be very accepting.
Yeah, and I have a question about that. Is there an effective way of getting it across to all the employees that the administration has not forgotten them and the council has not forgotten them?
Yeah,
go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. As I indicated, that to progress people's skill levels, you need to send them to training. Our two newest employees are going to train. They just went through the BSNA tax training. They're going to be going through the new BSNA accounting. We're helping them develop and giving them more responsibilities as they master those things that they can handle. That's how you progress and grow at all levels. So that is and will be expressed and made known to them, as you said, not only from the administration, but also to the council.
Susan?
And Sherry already has over 2.5 years in BSNA accounting in all the modules, in the utility billing, in the general ledger. So she is actually going to be training us and everybody else in the use of the BSNA, which, like Joe said, we're going to be installing as of tomorrow.
Brian?
Well, if the chairman will entertain a motion, I would like to move.
I always entertain motions.
I move to approve the wage increase waiver request of the village clerk and village manager and approve the reclassification of Sherry Hedrick to administrative accounting assistant to $14.50 per hour and with an effective date of July 1, 2014, and authorize the village manager to implement the wage increase effective July 1, 2014 as included in the approved budget.
I'll support. I think so that was Elgin and Dave.
Brian.
It's not Brian and Dave. Thank you. And I have a question about that. We've been focusing on the nudge up of Sherry's. Are there complications involved in the nudge down for the two of you?
Oh, no.
Okay. And simply, you are staying put rather than getting your 1% nudge up. So that there's really no complications for you. Okay. Discussion on the motion.
I think it's terrific that they have employees and employers that watch over their employees so well, that they take them under consideration first. Very well done.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything from the audience on this? We're about to vote. Yeah, go ahead and identify yourself again. Because somebody might have tuned in since you were at the podium previously.
Jennifer Graves. I am under the understanding that all the employees in the building know what all the other employees make. Is that why?
It's all public information.
Yes, public.
Yeah.
All right, that's what I had a question about, is in other businesses, that's between you and your employer, so I didn't know how that was.
They still
placed out.
talk, though.
What's that?
Even in private business, they still talk.
Yeah. They may actually not know, but if they make it their business to know, they will find out. Because it is public information. Any further thing from council? Let's do a roll call, since we're transferring funds.
Councilmember Cloutier.
Yes.
Councilmember Bailey.
Yes.
Councilmember Basardi. Yes. Councilmember Helmut.
No.
Councilmember Nichols.
Yes.
You have the count.
I do.
And it passed. Thank you. We're on to new business, and new business now has, let's see, what's next? Pollyant Trail Crossings, West Burdick, it says here.
I thought we have to do it.
Is somebody going to kick that off?
If you'd like to do,
Or whoever?
in light of our West Burdick Street reconstruction project, issue was raised relative to the appropriate marking and designation of that crossing to be as noticeable as possible and what options to consider. The current construction plan calls that the crossing would be the wide white strips that you may be familiar with painted at this point. And of course we have the flashing signals. That's what's on the plan at the moment. This can be modified. I did talk to our engineer to come up with some suggestions. For example, a different color than white, or alternating red or white and yellow, or putting a stop bar across, because it's an angled crossing. It goes at a 30 degree. Put a stop bar up so that cars don't get so close. Perhaps we talked about possibly doing a different type of material like concrete. It's a possibility that could be done as well. And the other real discernible one would be put a stop sign. So those are some of the options that we talked about and considered, and there may be some others, but it was, has to be put on the agenda. And I also wanted to bring up the Pleasant Street Pollyant Trail crossing issue relative to having stop signs there, because we've had a couple of near misses recently. And the same thing over Laug Street. These are at the end of the bridge, and people come off the bridge, and even though it says stop on both sides of the trail, they do not stop.
Yeah, just Mr. Dunn. Oh, you're next. Oh, he's yielded to you.
Oh, well, I was going to say to, just I guess general public, I have been up there and watched cyclists come off the bridge, and I mean, I don't know what speed they're going, but they're ripping down the side of the bridge, and they go across Pleasant Street without even slowing down, without looking, with nothing, and that's an accident waiting to happen there. And I believe that, and I asked to have this put on because Brian and I walked up and walked the length of the new road down there. And it's very clear to me that this is going to be a racetrack down Cemetery Hill and may result in somebody visiting Cemetery Hill. But it needs to be, there needs to be some distinction, whether it's a wide red line. I suggested yellow because yellow would stick right out at you. Whether it be a stop sign, it doesn't make any difference to me, but we need to do something other than this just sea of black across there. And white lines, you'd have to be painting them this wide, is my feeling.
Mr. Dunn?
Could I suggest there's got to be standards that maybe you could ask your engineer to look into? And if you need be, you can call the traffic engineers at the state or the traffic engineers at the county to ask, they've had this happen before. And for no other reason but the safety reason and liability, that you would follow whatever standards are out there rather than guessing.
Right. Well, it does meet, I'm sorry. If I could, what is proposed does meet the MDOT standards. But are there other things we could do to...
But again, you have traffic engineers at the county that would be more than willing to speak to you and maybe give you some suggestions. They've been trained at this. I just think it would be that worthwhile.
I have a comment. I tend to like the idea of a stop sign in some ways. We've put a major investment into that structure, you can call a road a structure, and it seems to me that seeing a stop sign way down the hill as you crest the hill will cause people to slow down in advance, and there'll probably be less wear and tear on the road, in my opinion, than if people just blast down the hill at 43 miles an hour or whatever in the 25 zone. So I like that idea, although there may be problems with it. I like the idea of white generally, except for one problem, and that is during snow time. During snow time, maybe a yellow or something other would stand up better against maybe patchy snow on the road, which could cause confusion in the driver's eye. And now the paving material is ordinary asphalt, is that correct?
9 inches of asphalt with the super pave underneath. So
Yeah, but I mean, on the surface,
asphalt. At
the
this time,
surface is,
supposedly
looks
asphalt.
like
Could be-
asphalt.
Could be made to concrete.
You could have stamped concrete.
Okay. I tend to oppose changes in the material, because anytime you have a change in the material, then there's a ka-thunk, ka-thunk, ka-thunk every time a tire goes over it, and that's a source of wear, in my opinion. So I prefer to see the whole thing be asphalt, and then just do the color distinctions by means of paint. Who was first between you two?
Let her go first.
Okay.
I don't think it would help on our side of the hill, but I think on the township side, you know how when you approach a light, and they'll have a sign about 500 feet back that'll start to flash yellow in advance to warn you?
Yeah.
Those pedestrian lights, if we could get something closer to the top of the hill or even over the hill to warn people that as you're coming over this hill, there's people crossing the street. Because I think a stop sign there would be horrible. Traffic would be backed up to the township hall, and the trucks are gonna have a heck of a time stopping at the bottom of that hill. I think it'll just be a really bad instance.
Elgin?
Yeah, I was just going to say, suggesting coming off the bridge over 24, they're not stopping, they just ride their bikes straight through. In Bay City, they had a similar problem with one of their paths. What they did is they staggered gates.
Yes.
So they'd have to get off their bikes, and it was well designated, so they could see this far in advance. They have to get off their bikes, walk it around in order to get across.
They call it a labyrinth, I believe.
It's a good idea, too.
It works. At least it worked there.
I think Brian was first.
Yes, I think Brian is first.
I like that idea. I've seen it. I've walked through those before. So I think that would solve that problem. I think what makes the Pollyant crossing at Burdick Street a little more complex than what we might be thinking, because you might be going, what is the big deal? Just put some stripes on the road. But when you have a Pollyant trail that crosses a busy street like Burdick, and then again crosses another side street in a blind spot that is West Street. I think the curbs that were put in during this construction process help that a little bit. It defines where the intersections are a lot better, but we still have an issue where we are crossing a main street by crossing another street in a blind spot. So safety is just a concern. Living right there, I'm witness to it. So perhaps, I can give you that insight. But I do think we need to come up with something a little more than just painting the stripes like we did before.
Your ideas.
And that
I always
is-
like
that is-
those lights that are warning me that
Yeah,
the light's gonna
I
change.
think that's a good idea, and in other communities as well, I've even seen those those narrow yield to pedestrian signs, even in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's enough room to do that, because the road seems more narrow than it
That
was
gets people's
before.
attention if it's in the middle.
But as Mr. Dunn had pointed out, we have engineers and we have people at Oakland County that could help us figure that out. And I think it should be something we need to take into consideration as well.
Mo?
as far as the bridge, the problem with that intersection, and we just got something from the police chief about that intersection, is you have Davison Street, the Pollyant Trail, Dayton Street, and we can't, if you put a stop sign in all of it, you're gonna be inching forward, and I think we need to look at the whole, I love Elgin's idea.
Yeah, that's an idea.
I know, I could just hug you, like, get off the council.
Please. I'm doing my best.
I just think that is a fabulous idea to stop those people from coming down. And if you put them up, and the skateboarders aren't gonna be able to do it, if you,
Right.
right,
Go ahead.
There's 3 comments.
fun.
One is relative to the colors of the crosswalk. We could do alternating white and yellow, for example. That particular signal, crossing signal, is solar operated. It's by battery. So to run something up the hill a ways, we're going to have to come up with some.
Be another solar.
It would have to be its own.
So you got to be able to connect the two so they synchronize somehow.
Right.
No, I think What more, sorry to interrupt. I apologize for that, I'm out of order.
No, are you done?
What Maureen is talking about is, in some communities, they have those permanent flashing yellow things with a pedestrian thing. That's, I think, what you mean.
You know, either way, just so the person coming over, I'd rather it be when someone hits the button, because then, you know, if it's always flashing, people are just gonna ignore it.
They're gonna slow down though.
Well, they're supposed to slow down anyway. It's going from 40 to 25 and they don't.
The yellow flashing would.
Like those railroad.
The other thing,
It would be interesting to look into both of them.
yeah, we'll check the cost and see what's involved. The other thing I wanted to mention, relative to the bridge in the aisles, that's really something we should request the Pollyant Trail to pursue, because that's, you know, their bridge, the DNR owns that bridge, so that's something we would need to ask them to consider doing that.
They may very well cover it, is what you're saying.
Right. Possible. It's not our bridge, but a motion to request the Pollyant, request installation of the pedestrian staggering gate system, which would require MDOT and probably DNR approval, but certainly MDOT.
I have input regarding the crossing at Lauk, at the foot of the east foot of the bridge. I have driven it with the attention paid to the crossing, and there's a hump. And that means no matter what kinds of stripes you put on it, from either direction, the driver doesn't see the crossing stripes until the last minute, because the crown of the hump shields his vision from those stripes. So it won't work at the east side of the bridge. I'm sure there are things that can be made to work, but stripes will have very little effect.
Well, that's another case where you got 3 intersections.
Yeah, indeed.
East to the east, comes right by the trail.
The driver's ed instructor considers
It's
that
center.
5 intersections.
Oh, 5 intersections.
He told my daughter that was the only 5-way intersection in the county that he knew of.
Which one you're speaking of?
Mill, East,
Yeah.
the alley, Lauk, and Depot.
Yeah.
All come together right there.
Oh, Depot, that's further down, but,
Right, but it's all right there, and
oh, no, I'm talking about the bridge crossing.
Center, is it center?
It is center, yeah. So there are three roadways with vehicular traffic, and 2, which is the eastbound and westbound parts of the Pollyant.
I mean,
Yeah, go ahead.
we could, until we get this resolved, could put up temporary stop signs.
Yes.
So we don't want to wait till we have an accident, I guess that's all I'm saying. We could always do temporary and then get a final fix, but just a suggestion. There's another option.
That's going to slow traffic tremendously.
you mean on Pleasant and
I'm Pleasant.
on Lauk, not on Burdick?
No. I mean, we could.
Not on Burdick.
And that would just really,
The one at Pleasant is the greatest exposure because it's the greatest amount of activity going on, the most amount of traffic,
Yeah.
both on the trail and on the road.
well, and Pleasant is getting an astronomical amount of traffic right now. I don't even know why right now.
I'd like to open it up to the public. If anybody has any questions or input for us, go and identify yourself.
My name is Bonnie Staley. I live at the end of Dayton Street. I think since there's such confusion, I think this should really be just put aside and call in the experts, because everyone sees it from a different angle. And I live in the area where all of this is going on, and all I can see coming over that hill, if there's somebody's going to rear end, or if you stop them, or whatever's going to happen, there's going to be a lot of injuries. And I don't think it's worth going back and forth and thinking, well, this is what we should do, no this. I think you need to call in the expert.
I agree.
That's what I would think.
If I may
That's what I'm asking.
comment about that. Yes, I at least, and I think the other members of the council also value expert input highly. But the decision ultimately has to be made at this table because we allocate the funds. I think you were first, Brian? Or-
Well, I'm not, I can't make a motion in this sense, but I'm just gonna kind of try to put a, stop to this and say, I think we're all in concurrence that we need to address this issue. So I would like to address the village manager and just request that he investigate the dialogue or initiate the dialogue with the people at Oakland County. I'm sorry, Bill. And so Bill and MDOT and you guys administratively have that dialogue, start that dialogue, and also meet with the engineers. I'm sure you're seeing them almost daily now, and find out, if there are other alternatives that would work in this process. Bring it back to us.
And there is no motion required for that to happen?
No, it's just an informal directive.
Does anyone have any comments on this concept? Who was first?
Go with Sue.
Sue.
I would agree, but I'd like to do it sooner rather than later.
So August 12th is the next scheduled meeting. One thing I guess I would like to consider relative to a meeting is we have the bids for the East Alley coming up July 28th. So if you want to consider having a meeting, we could also then address the East Alley bids and this Polly Trail crossing issue before August 12th. It's just a suggestion.
What kind of input would we have by that date?
We'll have options to consider, pros and cons and costs.
It's realistic to do that.
I mean, we've already queued our engineers looking to investigate already.
I guess, yeah. Go
Joe,
ahead,
do we
Mel.
have stop signs available at the DPW garage?
Temporary ones.
Do you need a traffic order to have them temporarily installed?
Technically, we need to come.
I'll make a motion to install temporary stop signs at the intersections of the Pollyant Trail and Pleasant Street and Pollyant Trail and Log Street to stop traffic on the streets as well as on the trail, which are already there.
I'll support that for discussion. And I have in mind that it may be a more flexible motion if we authorize it rather than command that it be done. Because that way, if there's problems, then...
So to authorize the
Then Joe can
installation?
work on the problems.
I'm all good with that. I'll amend my motion.
I think as a temporary solution.
Well, yeah,
Before we have.
That's what it is.
So I'm amending my motion. Do you amend your support?
I do.
Let's roll.
Does the clerk have a good version of that motion with our adjustments? Okay. Discussion on the motion. A discussion from the audience on the motion. Let's do a roll call. This is a life and death issue.
President Bailey.
Yes.
Councilmember Basardi. Yes. Councilmember Helmut.
Yes.
Councilmember Nichols.
Yes.
Councilmember Cloutier.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
as long as we're on the the bridge, Joe, I've had a lot of people ask me an update on when it's going to be complete. Can you tell the television audience when we expect
Oh, West Burdick?
West Burdick to
Oh,
open
you
up?
meant the bridge. I'm like, the bridge was done a
I
couple
know, I
years
was
ago.
thinking, what's the
People are
matter
asking
with
me,
the
but
bridge?
it's now, it's a good segue for Joe to just give everybody a
Here's a great segue.
Sorry. I'll never do it.
I can do that on a manager report, I can do it now, whichever you prefer.
Is it part of his manager report?
Yeah.
Yep, we could do that.
You want to do it at manager's report?
It's up to you.
Yeah.
Do it at manager's report.
Yep.
Okay, items removed from consent agenda, there were none, I believe.
No?
Okay. Public comments, this is your chance to talk about anything, whether it's on or off the agenda, and regardless of whether it's already been discussed, this is free for all.
Here we go.
Yeah, go ahead. Identify yourself again, in case new people have
I
tuned
think
in on
Bonnie should
video.
run for council.
I agree.
Well, it'd have to be a write-in campaign.
I'm Bonnie Staley, I live at the end of Dayton Street. When we go back to directing traffic for the cemetery, where Sue suggested that be directed, I have a comment in that. We live at the very end of Dayton Street, and at the fence that separates the village from the township, there is a hole in the fence. Daily, at least 50 people walk through there, ride bikes through there, and come back and forth all day long. And I think that if you're going to direct traffic, it would be, you have to direct them away from all these cars, because they're 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old. I mean, these aren't grown-ups. These are grown-ups and kids of all ages. So, and some of them right ahead of the parents. And I'm just concerned, as I am when they come through the fence, that they're gonna hit by cars on Cherry Court, that they can get hit by those cars coming out of the cemetery. So the big thing with traffic, I think traffic direction is a necessary thing when you've got that much foot traffic going up and down the street. And it starts about 6 in the morning and it goes through until dark. We have speed cyclists that ride through in their little nylon things, you know, and we have families and we have teenagers and we have 12 and 13-year-olds that ride through there on their little BMX bikes, and we can easily sit and count minimum of 50 people in a day coming and going through that hole in that fence. So I think the big thing is directing traffic so that those children or those families do not get hurt when cars are coming. And, you know, if the kids are riding ahead of their parents, they're not really going to pay attention. And we've always been a family street where the kids our whole neighborhood has been a family neighborhood. But especially that street, and those people come through there to get uptown and to go to things, you know, up without having to go all the way around. But I worry about those kids.
Bonnie, can I just ask you, is that hole in the fence a deliberate hole, or is it something that...
We don't know how it got there.
I'm sure. That's my mind. I've talked to Mr. Staley because he had concerns about people just going through without looking. And I did go out there today, and it's on the Waterstone side, they have a big asphalt patch opening to accommodate people coming.
Something's written on that or something, you know.
It's at the end of the road, and they've paved the big area to facilitate people walking through there, and it's a hole, and I mean, an opening, and on our side, obviously. So and we were looking to put a watch for traffic sign or something, because they have concerns again.
Well, and the township is involved too, because they're coming from the township into the village.
Right.
But if they get hit, it's on the village property, because Cherry Court is in the village, and that's, even if it's on Davis Street, there've been some near misses. When we back out of our driveway, we have to sit completely still and check to make sure nothing's coming through the fence or near the fence or anything, because it would be easy for us to even back into them.
But as far as my wife is saying, somebody should be checking down by where the cemetery must come through. He stated that there will be somebody standing down there.
Well, I think it needs to be stressed, highly stressed, that it always be directed, because I would hate to see a little 3-year-old ride a bike with training wheels into those, you know, into those vehicles.
Right, but I still didn't get an answer. Is the hole in the fence something that somebody
No,
cut?
it's an opening. It's not a hole. It's an
So
opening.
it's an official
It's a bona fide
Okay.
opening.
Do we know who,
Maybe Mr. Dunn knows about it.
do we know who made it?
At one time, they was gonna put Davis Street all the way through.
Yes.
That was voted down by the people in the neighborhood. They put
Okay.
a petition up, and they said, well, you know that.
Oh, yeah.
Do we know?
I think the neighbors just kind of created a hole and everybody went with it. Because it's very convenient
Yeah.
when you're walking into town or into Waterstone to go
That's not a
that way.
problem. We don't have a problem with that. But safety is the issue.
Right.
Brian?
Just a question. There are no sidewalks in your community, are there?
No, because our road is so narrow. We're not set up where you can really, they do need to use the road, because everything, if you put a sidewalk in, it would almost be at our front doors, because we don't have that kind of room.
Right, and I'm not proposing that we put a sidewalk in your neighborhood. I just want to understand the scope of...
No, and there are no signs that say on the township side to say watch for cars, or a stop sign at Cherry Court to say, you know, or even a pedestrian sign, slow down the pedestrian crossing there. But even though that's a concern, my biggest concern is that those cars be direct, really somewhere there,
Right,
so
yeah, we
there's no
understand.
way those kids can
Right.
drive into it.
Right, that's why I brought it up, because I think it's important too.
Okay, I'm done.
Thank you. Further input from the public? Questions from the public? Okay, we're on to number 12, which is manager's report.
I just wanted to report on the two street projects, West Burdick and Mr. Diane. Today, contractor did lay 2 of the 4 courses of asphalt. It's called Super Pave, 2 inches each. Tomorrow, they will be laying the 3rd base course. Then they will be milling at the 2 ends of the project at Waterstone and at West Street, where the road wasn't reconstructed, but we're going to be milling 2 inches off at the 2 ends, and then they've got to adjust what they call the structures, drainage and things of that nature, and do some of the restoration, cleanup. And then they will come back. The plan is at the moment, Tuesday, to come back, subject to weather, and put the final 2 inches of what's called wearing course, the final beautiful cap. And then, of course, you have to stripe it. And depending on the weather, we were looking at July 31st, but there's an outside chance it could be the 30th, depending on the weather. And the landscaper's got to get in. But anyway, just let you know the current status. We're on target for the revised date of July 31st or sooner. The other one, unless you have a question, I'm going to go on to East Alley for a minute.
Go ahead.
The Edison East Alley, a couple of things coming up. I mentioned that we had a pre-bid meeting today on the project. The bids are due next Monday, which time thereafter, subject to review by the engineers, the council could consider awarding the contract and financing, of course. There is a neighborhood meeting scheduled for Wednesday, July 30th, to discuss with the residents their property lines. Because yesterday we had the engineer stake the village's right-of-way boundary and where the ends of the edges of the road would be, as well as the west side. So they now know what, according to our engineers, and the survey shows, because some of the properties have 15, 20 feet of their backyard that are in the village's alleyway. And they also were seeing what kind of excavation work will be necessary, because it's raised up quite a bit in the east side of the project. It's going to have to be lowered for the road to match up with the development there. So we're having this meeting Wednesday evening at 7 right here, by the way, for a discussion with the property owners on Pearl and the properties on the East Alley to get their input to talk about the project and the land issues, boundary issues, and trees, and screening and fencing. There's a few fences. There's some that don't have solid fences. Some don't have fences at all. Some have chain link fences. So the purpose of the meeting is to discuss the different issues and concerns. Like, for example, coming through the new Genesis Credit Union at night, people's set lights shining into those properties. So they would want some kind of screening, either arborvitae or something, or perhaps a wall. So we're going to be discussing and getting their input on that's the purpose of the meeting, as well as explaining the project. So I just wanted to mention that to you too. And then again, if you want to consider a meeting sooner than August 12th to not only deal with the Pollyant Crossing issue, but also deal with the East Alley bids and the screening issue as well, just if you want to meet sooner than that.
What is the date of the Wednesday meeting?
The 30th.
The 30th.
Of July. That's the resident.
30 July, okay.
You could meet the week before for, okay, now it's election day, so forget that idea. No, it's not like, yeah, it is election day. August 5th is the Proposition 1 and the 4th primary.
That's
so we
Tuesday.
want to have a planning commission meeting, we wouldn't want to have a council meeting, but...
The primary is Tuesday?
Yes.
Okay.
So, if you want to move it up a week or so, that would, just something you're considering.
Anything from council on that
That's all
scheduling?
Is there anything scheduled for the Plan Commission?
No, it won't be until the 19th.
Until what?
The following meeting, the fire department is supposed to be ready. But we don't have anything for the 5th.
So we'd be
Selection
having this
day.
the third Tuesday for the Planning Commission?
The 19th. Council meeting is the 12th, so if you'd want to meet on the 4th or on the 7th or 8th, this is just a suggestion.
Well, I don't have a problem moving, you want to just have a special meeting on the 5th? Or
Well, not the
whatever
election
the,
day, I don't think you can do
well, we were going to have a Planning Commission, right?
it. There was no items.
No, I know, but we would have
Would
had.
have normally, yeah, you
right.
could be on the 5th, it's fine. You're right, because nobody's really running, it's just a ballot
But
proposals.
Right.
Elgin and I will not
Oh,
be,
you'll be working,
Yes.
right, I forgot, yeah. So either Monday the 4th or Wednesday the 7th or Thursday the 8th would be the week before. And it could be during the day, right? If you want. It's your call. So we don't need to decide tonight, we got 3 weeks.
All right, well, I don't have my calendar with me, so
So just something,
Well,
I mean, I never do anything on Tuesday. I don't plan to do anything because every meeting's,
the premise is to do this thing sooner than later,
yep.
so. When we let Susan check her calendar, kind of go with that.
Well, what are you thinking?
I'll try to be flexible, but we can't be flexible on the 5th.
right?
so we'll get back and,
Pick a day and let us know.
well, yeah.
I'll look and send you a note.
What more do we have on manager's report?
That's all I have.
Okay, clerk's report.
I want to say thank you for those that had gone out and got petitions and did sign up to run for the November 4th election, to Mo and Sue and Rose and Brian. I also have, because we are getting ready to start installing our BSNA, I have a couple of testimonials. It's been going back and forth, and one of them is from Terry Weigarden. She's the treasurer of West Bloomfield, and she states that they have the full suite of the BSNA products, and she says the BSNA allows departments to have electronic documentation and record keeping, excellent audit trails. She says they have been able to eliminate paper and improve efficiencies. She says the technical support is fantastic and that she's been very pleased with the BSNA suite of products. And from the treasurer from the Kalamazoo County, he also says that they use the full range of BSNA products, and he agrees with Terry as to how much it has smoothed out the operation of the township. He says it's well worth the investment. It will save you time and money. So just a couple of more people that are in support of our ideal to go to this more secure software.
Thank you.
And I appreciate the confidence that we will get this done.
Okay, let's have council comments, starting with Maureen
Nothing.
and Elgin.
I'd just like to have our viewing public understand that they can view any of these meetings by going to occtv.org and just click on programs, and you'll see a list of different programs, and just click the one you want to see. That's the commercial for that.
Could you do a little song next time? I mean, a little dance?
Gotta have some intro music or something.
Brian?
Just a couple of comments. One, this is a question. Other than going online, what is the channel now?
You have, if you want to go to Charter, it's channel 199.
199?
191.
Or 191, I'm sorry. They keep changing them.
I know,
They
it's
did.
191 is
And
charter.
on AT&T, it's channel 99.
Okay, thanks.
The U-verse.
Thanks.
U-verse 99.
Because believe it or not, I was actually looking for it the other night and couldn't find it.
Well, I would hope so.
Just a couple comments. One is, I want to say that the curbing, the process to redo Burdick Street is so far exceeding my expectations. However, I do have a couple complaints, I guess, and that is that, this gentleman and his mother who had to go down the Pollyant Trail is absurd. You didn't do anything wrong, you don't need to apologize to us. Personally, I feel either we failed or our contractor failed and notifying you to let you know adequately what was going to be happening and when it was going to be happening so that we could make accommodations for that if necessary. Obviously, we had to shut your street or your entrance down to make those curb cuts and the apron and all that. I understand, we all understand that those things happen. But the fact that you weren't given adequate timing on that is not your fault, that's our fault. And I can say that because this morning, I did a crazy thing. I pulled out of my driveway like any other morning and went to the end of my street expecting there to be an apron to my street. I'm paying attention to the construction crews trying to get out of my street, and in that process, assuming, because it's been there every morning and I didn't look down at the street, I just looked out at Burdick, well, I had a wake-up call because I went off the edge of my street. I wasn't going very fast, but the bottom of my car slammed into the concrete. And let's just say I was not a happy person at that point. And I had some words, exchanged words with the contractor. We were able to resolve it, and thankfully there was no damage done to the vehicle, but those are things that they really were not paying attention. There was no barricade at the end of the street that said, don't go here. So every morning I've been going through there. Well, this morning I had a wake-up call. Done climbing off the soapbox for that. The other thing is I made it very clear in the beginning that I had no intention in running for village council and that I was really stepping in as a temporary gesture to help us get through some challenging times and maybe provide some input and insight and a different perspective on things. However, during that process, we've made a lot of changes that maybe you don't know that we made behind the scenes, and a lot of things are in progress to try to simplify things, make things more transparent, make things more practical from many aspects. My colleague Elgin and I and Ms. Basardi have sat on a number of committees behind the scenes to try to make those things better for this community. Sue and I are sitting on a personnel committee to try to resolve some issues that we see could be potential issues, to try to spearhead things and make some changes and recommendations to administration and how this village operates and functions. Well, obviously, that's a very important process. It's a process that takes time, and it's not something that you just rush through because, oh, I'm going to be off in November. So with that being said, and knowing that there are a lot of things that are happening administratively behind the scenes that really need more time and deserve time, I've made the decision to willingly step up and try to extend my time here. Beyond that, I really don't have any intention in extending, but certainly, you know, I understand that there are things that are in progress, and I would hate to see those just diminish. So that's why I have, at last minute, made the decision to move forward and consider being elected then to council. That's all.
Thank you, Brian. Sue?
Well, I just wanted to chime in. We sat on that committee with Bob Davis, the village attorney, so it's not just me and Brian making changes.
Maureen, you have something to add?
I wasn't aware that we had a personnel committee.
Maybe you left that meeting early.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Well, I'm just wondering how long we've had a personnel committee then.
just
A few months at
Maybe
a few months.
maybe one of you has an approximate date for that?
I would have to look that up.
Yeah, okay.
It's been 2 or 3 months, probably.
Yeah,
That'd be great, thanks.
It's been a while.
Because Elgin doesn't
Yeah, I
recall it
didn't
either.
recall it either. So, usually my memory is a little better, but I'm getting older, so.
Well, I don't think that we called it anything. It's just a committee to.
I do remember
look
a
at-
dialogue that we had
Right.
with Mr. Davis right there.
Right.
And he said, I would like for, and I volunteered to step forward, and Mr. Davis said I would be more
I
than
just don't
happy.
remember it, and I'm just wondering how long we've had and exactly what kind of things. But we'll
Probably-
get into that at another night.
Yeah,
And honestly, I don't have an issue with it. It's just that
no, I know.
I think there should be one.
Yeah. Definitely should be one.
Do you have more, Sue? Worse?
No, just celebrate Lone Ranger's coming up, so. Everybody come.
I forgot that we have sidewalk sales this weekend,
Oh, yeah.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
I have two things. One is, at a previous meeting, there's a question about speed signage in the quadrants of the village, and I have driven all of the northwest quadrant, and guess what? There's no speed signs in the northwest quadrant, so that means that speed everywhere in the northwest quadrant will be the default, which is 25 miles an hour in built-up areas. There are a couple of 25 signs on Burdick Street, but I kind of don't count those, because that's not really within the northwest quadrant. So it was interesting for me to see that that's very uniform and uniformly not posted. And with regard to my own last-minute decision, well, last minute, if like a week is last minute, my own decision not to circulate petitions and become a candidate for the council this go-round. I'm in a kind of an uncertain position. I presently have 3 jobs, and all 3 of them are mostly inactive. And so I might find myself tempted to relocate to a place where I might find significant employment more quickly. And I don't think that is going to happen, but as long as there was some uncertainty about it, I thought I should not make a commitment for either 4 years or 2 years to my municipality. I have done this once before. I took 2 years off from council once before, so it's not unprecedented. I don't feel good about the decision because I've enjoyed my time on council, but it's a decision I have made. Any further comments from council or from the public? No?
I'll
make a motion
to. Sorry. I should have said this earlier, but likewise, when we talk about the Burdick Street reconstruction, and we talk a lot about speed and safety, I think right out of the gate, we need to have police enforcement because they are going to be coming down the hill, and we need to set the precedent right out of the gate that we're not going to tolerate that speedway.
I agree.
I agree.
I'll make a motion to adjourn at 7:35 if you're done, Brian.
Yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
I'm sorry, 25.
7:25, yes.
Clock.